voting this ordinance down and doing a regional ordinance that is really going to help and protect the people in this community. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tremino. Next is Linda Madrid Espinosa.
Good evening. My name is Linda Madrid Espinosa, and I'm a native of New Mexico and am now residing in Peña Blanca. And I am here because some of the people asked me if I would come because they're very confused. They did not know all of this was going on, and they're very concerned about their properties. I am also co-manager of Lupita's Valley Cafe, which was opened up, took 2 years to get it opened up by a local priest. We are hiring local people. We are trying to bring farming to table. We're trying to work with all the people, all the farmers in Peña Blanca, work with the people in Santo Domingo and Cochiti. My concern is that I lived for 23 years in Oklahoma City, where in 2016 there were 350 earthquakes. 2017, there's already 300 earthquakes. I sat in my home that was shaking from a 5.1 earthquake that was due to the fracking that's going on in Oklahoma City. I'm also a real estate agent in Oklahoma City, and I had to sell some of these homes that were cracked, that had foundation problems, that the bricks were falling because of all these earthquakes. The roofs were being destroyed, and it was costing thousands and thousands of dollars to owners of these homes that could not sell their homes because they didn't have the money to do the repairs to sell their homes. In Oklahoma, most of the homes that are built there are frame. Here in New Mexico, most of the homes are adobe. So when an earthquake took place, the frame could move. We could go and get somebody to lift the foundation and try to put the house back together. Earthquakes here are going to knock down the adobe walls. We're also very concerned that we have a lot of farmers, and we've got Cochiti Dam. A lot of our business is the tourists that are coming to Peña Blanca that are going to Tent Mountains and Cochiti. And what's going to happen to the Tent Mountains if we start having a lot of earthquakes? When we first went to Oklahoma, there was earthquakes, but every year the earthquakes grew. We are also living in a historical area. We have the building we have our restaurant in is a historical convent that was built in the early 1900s. And we have many, many historical sites in Santo Domingo and Cochiti and in Peña Blanca and Sile. Our farmers need to be protected. Our water needs to be protected. And I'm asking to please table this and allow the people who did not know or understand what's going on to have some time to study this and to put a task force together to try to get this so that we can all work together and communicate together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Espinosa. Next up is Sally Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, County Commissioners, for allowing me to speak. My name is Sally Hall. I live in Peña Blanca. I have a native plant landscaping business for 30 years. My daughter, Clea, and I have rescued 24 of the bands of wild horses and have a Happy Rascal Ranch sanctuary for the horses and donkeys. I speak against drilling in the Earth's crust. Using chemicals to pull out oil would ruin our aquifer forever. This would irrevocably damage and put in peril the health and well-being of people and all living beings in our town and a wide surrounding area for this generation and all to come. Look at what's happening around the country. No potable water in Pennsylvania. More severe and frequent earthquakes in Oklahoma. Water that comes out of the tap in Colorado is lit on fire. Money is an illusion. It is short-sighted to make decisions that permanently damage life for power and greed. Money is not our most precious resource. Water is our most precious resource. Everyone has a heart and a conscience. I call on that in all of you commissioners to make a choice to care for the earth and the water that sustains us. Reject this ordinance on behalf of all life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Up next is Kathleen Grudy.
I'm here in her place. I'm Eleanor Bravo. Oh.
Looks like she's getting this.
Did you call Kathleen Grudy?
I did.
Oh, sorry.
My name is Kathleen Grudy.
Louder, please.
Good evening. Is that better? My name is Kathleen Grudy. I live in Chile, New Mexico. I own 25 acres of irrigated farmland. I spoke in these chambers on November the 2nd concerning facts derived from several studies that I investigated which disputed the fact that oil and gas exploration will bring high-paying jobs into the county. In the Chile and Peña Blanca area, the local labor force doesn't have skills to operate oil and gas equipment, but we're not without our skills. The native people have been farmers for thousands of years. This area is a center of origin for the development of, and the farming of chili. Currently, New Mexico imports $36 million worth of chili from China and Mexico. We don't grow our chili locally. But yet we have land and abundance of high quality water in my area. And we have skilled labor, we have skilled farmers. Why can't we just diversify from relying on oil and gas for revenue? There's at least 33 states in this country that have passed legislation that give farmers the right to grow industrial hemp. We need the domestic production of industrial hemp could replace $20 billion worth of imported hemp that we import from other countries. We have the area, we have the expertise, we have the land, we have the will to grow industrial hemp. Why don't we have a vision? Why are we still back in the 1950s and 60s drilling for oil? Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, and West Virginia allow their farmers to grow hemp. They've completely replaced the revenue from the tobacco industry in these states. And they've diversified their economies, and they've diversified their revenue sources. Don't the citizens of Sandoval County deserve the same forward thinking? If we allow the water in my area, the water table is 3 feet below the surface. So any kind of surface spill would contaminate both surface water and the groundwater. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Grudy. Next up is Michelle Swanson.
Michelle has a display board and they won't let her bring it in.
Unless you say that it's okay.
Not display board.
It's a map of
I'll
where
tell
we
you what,
live.
I'll let you bring in your map. I'm gonna go ahead and call the next person on the list while you get ready. How's
Thank you,
that?
sir.
Thank you. Dustin Garcia.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time this evening. I came here to speak as a man, common man, Pueblo man. I don't have a piece of paper to speak from, but I do have this sand on my moccasins that I wear, these ashes on my body, medicine in my mouth. And that's my culture, that's my belief. It's where I come from, and that's here. You're the visitors here. This was our land. Before the Spaniards came, before the American. And as my sister Ajani Yepa said earlier, every time you guys, as planning and zoning, allow people to build and then move forward, it's all economically based. You're not considering where you are. I mean, if you look at Chaco Canyon, that's equivalent to the pyramids of Egypt. And that spans to this area, throughout the Four Corners area, all the way up into Utah. When you erase that, you erase a page of our history book. You erase our culture. You erase who we are and how we teach our children. These sites are places that go back farther than any government goes back in this area. And so I just ask you guys to please, not only beyond tribal consultation, but really as human beings, think about what you're doing to this area, what you're doing to a civilization that's been here way before anything that is based in this ordinance and these issues. Everything I see in this ordinance is all economically based. I see smiles, I see smirks, I see frowns, I see people staring at their laptops, I see people giving time up, I see a gentleman staring at his phone right now. I see nothing, no emotion, no real humanity coming from this. I don't understand why. I did a research when I was in college back in 2009, that many years ago, that said, based upon my research, it would take 86 inches of precipitation per year for 6 years to restore our water table. We average about 13. And you guys are actually fathoming the thought of letting our aquifers become contaminated for money, for your pockets. Don't take me out of context when I say your, but you're allowing big money oil and energy companies that have no care, no compassion, no sense of culture. This is our way. And speaking of time, think about the time, how long it's taken us to come this far, and you're gonna let that go, let it be erased, taken away. How I teach my children, my daughter, our language, our culture, for what? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Rob Pazana? Okay, I'll get you next, Ms. Swanson, after Mr. Pazana here. I didn't see you were back. Sorry.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Robert Pazana. I'm from Peña Blanca, New Mexico, one of the areas that is possibly going to be affected by this oil and gas industry. As a 100% disabled vet, my family and I have owned and operated this first year a green chili farm, organic green chili farm at that. We use this farm as a PTSD coping method for veterans that suffer from PTSD, myself included. It really gets me emotional to think that we were voted as a chili capital of the world, and we don't even have our own chili. I do. I can guarantee that I have probably one of the best chilies in New Mexico. But if this happens, it goes away. We are the chili capital of the world. Let's prove it. The whole middle Rio Grande Valley is filled with chili instead of oil. Our kids, our families, everybody's going to suffer. And I can tell you this from firsthand experience. I'm from Texas, South Texas. I was a roughneck. My daddy was a roughneck, 23 years. My dad can't even wipe his own butt now. 60 years old. So it hurts. It's close, real close to home. Closer than South Texas. It's in Peña Blanca now. And we can't allow it, gentlemen. We voted you in. The community, Sandoval County, voted you in. It's up to you guys, every single one of y'all. You're held accountable for everybody's opinion in here. You're the ones that make the decisions. We're just a community. And myself as a veteran, I said I would support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I'm pretty sure all my rights and everybody's rights in this building were included in that Constitution. That's our home. The Native Americans around us, I live right between them. That's their home. Our home was their home. I'm telling you this, we need to stop it. You know, I understand we need oil and gas. That's how our country runs. But we take the gas out of it and we ship the oil overseas. Where are we benefiting out of that as a country? We're making profit off of oil. It's not the way it's supposed to be done. This is our country, our community, and our county. You're voted in, protect us. That's what you're here for. Protect our community. We only have a voice. You have a finger to push a button and say, you know what, this don't have to happen. We can stop it. So I ask you and I beg you, please, stop this. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, thank you, Mr. Now, Ms. Thompson, if you're ready. Do you need help? You gotta help her. She's right behind you.
But I'm ready.
Take your
Can I
time.
hold
Yeah,
on?
of course.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this right. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. My name is Michelle Swanson, and I am from the Peña Blanca area. November 2nd, I also came with the same hydrological study of our area. I didn't have time to describe the potential earthquakes that can be in this area, and I did not have time to talk about the Rio Grande, which is a Rio Grande rift. I have a paper here, a couple of articles that explains the it's a study that was done out in Boulder, Colorado, of areas around the Raton Basin that had 1,800 more earthquakes with a magnitude of 4.3 that were shown to be caused by oil and gas exploration. This is a fact. This isn't someone who's just telling you something. It is a fact. This area that we are talking about here, we have a doctor over here who told you that the western Sandoval County area, which is not even near our area, is safe. We are not in the western Sandoval County area. We are in central and a little north Sandoval County area. The geology in this area, the water in this area is not the same, and that man is not telling you how it can affect this area. This area has 19 faults in a 25 by 35 kilometer 25 by 35 kilometer, 19 faults. It has a Rio Grande rift running through it. That's not like me and you having a little argument. That's like 2 plates being pushed up by magna and going in different areas. This is a sensitive, vulnerable area, and you cannot ignore how frightening it is. To live in this area, you need to take a look at these things. You need to do more studies about this area. And I hope pray that you will all take us into consideration and that you will wait until a study that has already been paid for is completed. And I've listened to your panel of people. They are not telling you the correct information. Thank you so much.
All right,
I
thank you, Ms.
appreciate it.
Swanson. Up next is Larry Curtad.
My name is Wolfman, aka Larry Hurtado. I built the Vietnam Memorial here in Bernalillo, and I'm from Pena Blanca. And let me ask you guys one question. No, first of all, see, do you know what a walking dead person is? Have you ever heard that phrase? Well, you're looking at one. I am walking dead. From the Agent Orange. Now you're coming in with the oil in our water. You know what that's gonna do to me and many more like me? That's gonna kill us, definitely. We're not gonna be walking dead, we're gonna be buried dead. So how many of you can live with that? Because there's a lot of Vietnam veterans in this county. I got them all on my wall that I built. There's over 200 right there, and there's more that their names are not on there. It's a memorial/monument. On the monument is where I got the veterans. The KIA wall are the guys that got killed in Vietnam. They were the lucky ones. We came back walking dead. And I know that there's some people here that know what that means. They're veterans. And I've heard some comments. A lady said that we will be here no matter what. Well, if you guys vote for that and we start getting earthquakes, that dam is gonna split, the dam that's in Pena Blanca. And what's gonna happen? Pena Blanca, Cochiti, Sile, Santo Domingo, Bernalillo, Rio Rancho, Albuquerque, it's gonna be gone. This kids, look back there, there was some kids back there. There's still one little kid over there. See that kid? He won't grow up to see what we have seen. He won't grow up to be a man. He's gonna be buried young under the water that's gonna come from that dam. So if you can live with it, of the people that are gonna die, then vote for it. If not, then vote against it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Next up is Lou Fisher. Lou Fisher.
Try this mic, because that one keeps, IT folks ought to look at the clicking and clacking in that mic. Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Evening, Mr. Fisher.
I'll try not to bore you, and I'll try not to repeat things that have already been said or that I've already said. As you know, I'm a proud member of the oil and gas community. I do mergers and acquisitions for my clients who are drilling companies. So I'm pretty pro when it comes to oil and gas. So I can tell you that from my perspective, I'm as a proud member of the community, I'm giddy with excitement over the drilling ordinance that you are apparently determined to pass. But as a citizen of our county, I'm quite concerned, as you very well know, sir. Now, I can assure you that if you were to take a referendum of your constituents, I think you would find the majority of them to be opposed to this. You know, they're the folks that elected you into your office. You know, those folks. Now, I'm indeed quite concerned. I wanted to have someone here tonight. He's out of the country and back in the country on Sunday, which is a little bit too late. But he is an expert that can stand up to any of these folks that are talking to you. He's a geologist. He's a petroleum engineer. He owns numerous patents in fracking. He is an authorized and acknowledged witness for OCD. And I'm going to have him here next week. Couldn't have him here this week. If you pass this ordinance, he can explain to you next week what a colossal mistake you've made. On the other hand, if you hold off, I can have him here next week to explain to you the concerns that are just not being put in front of you. You're hearing all the wrong stuff. All the wrong stuff. Now, so in any event, I have 3 questions that I would appreciate you addressing, Mr. Chairman, either during the discussion portion or right now if you prefer. You know, first, what are your observations regarding your review of the petroleum engineer Don Phillips' geologic study, which indicates major geologic differences between the western and eastern portions of our county? I personally find that study quite concerning and disturbing. Secondly, why are you not waiting for the New Mexico tech study you commissioned, which is due out in May? Why are you forging ahead and not waiting for the results of your own study? And lastly, why are you and the P&Z director over there, your compatriot, resisting the attempts of your fellow commissioners to amend the ordinance with their changes which are intended to add protection for your constituents? I'd like you to answer those questions, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Didn't think you would.
I will address your questions a little later on when it's my turn to speak. In the meantime, Rebecca Jitterbach? Sorry. Jitterbach, thank you.
So my name is Rebecca Juderbach, and I live in Algodones. And I wanted to state that I, and I believe others, are very concerned about being responsible for the upkeep of our county roads and providing emergency services to the Rio Rancho estates when the oil and gas industry drills wells. Are we able, as a county, as Sandoval County taxpayers, to be able to pay for those services for our roads because of the heavy use of large vehicles and machinery? Are we as taxpayers willing and able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and perhaps much, much more on building a fire station at Rio Rancho Estates or any far out location and training emergency workers to fight oil fires? Are we as a county willing to be able to pay the oil and gas industry to bring in temporary jobs, maybe some jobs, heavy labor jobs? Are we willing to pay for that? And I don't believe that is our responsibility to pay these expenses. Please include these issues in the ordinance. I also wanted to say real briefly, the ordinance has no requirements in it for air or water. There are no state or federal regulations that will monitor our water contamination, and it's up to you to make our health and safety protected. So copies have been distributed to you, to the board by the paper written by Donna Dowell. So please table this Stoddard ordinance and include these issues, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Judabach. Robert Gonzalez. If he's not here, I'm going to move on. John Black.
Does it matter which? Okay. Mr. Chairman and Commission, a lot of things have been said tonight that I was gonna say, but the main thing I want to stress is the sooner you get this ordinance in place, the quicker you have some protection that you don't have right now. And that ordinance, as time goes on, can be amended by your group as it sees fit if there is a need. You've spent almost 2 years in diligent study, and your staff has recommended approval of the Stoddard Amendment. Drilling is going on today in Sandoval County without this ordinance in place. The protections that you're wanting to put in place are not there yet. So I know it's probably not perfect, and it may never be. But if you can adopt the ordinance now, you'll start implementing the level of protections that it has in this ordinance today. And again, you can amend those ordinances and add anything that you felt like you overlooked or didn't cover right, or you may take some things out that you feel like you put in that you shouldn't have put in. But without an ordinance at all, and that's where we are today, the protection that these people are wanting behind me doesn't exist at that level. It exists at the state level and the federal level, which is substantial. I've seen the volumes of regulations that already exist. And a lot of the protections for the groundwater and other things that have been talked about today are definitely in those volumes of existing regulations. So it's not like we started regulating the oil and gas business here at Sandoval County and no one else has ever done that. So I just urge you to add the reasonable protections we're talking about for Sandoval County, and a lot of which is surface use and surface mitigation rights that you want for the county to have over drilling, and that is special and unique to Sandoval County, and I appreciate that. But I don't want to go over all the other things I had on my list because they've already been said before, and I appreciate what you've done for your due diligence, and I just urge you to pass the ordinance and revise it as you need it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Black. Up next is Alan Friedman.
Good evening, Chairman Chapman and Commissioners. My name is Alan Friedman. I live in Placitas. My focus is on water, and I could have asked Steve Jenkins to give this talk tonight, but he's already spoken. But let me tell you what I want to talk about, and the importance of water to the prosperity of Sandoval County. Sandoval County is tapped out on water rights. Build out in Rio Rancho Estates is limited by water availability. If you remember, the Rio West project 12 years ago never materialized, in large part because of the lack of water. In the big picture, Sustained economic development in the county is about water and using the water we have wisely. County commissioners that came before you understood, and they passed in the comprehensive zoning ordinance, that the provisions of this ordinance are designed to promote the health and general welfare of the county, to protect local water resources. When Sandridge applied for a permit 2 years ago, my concern was about water and the large amounts of water used by oil and gas operations. In intervening 2 years, as they learned more, my focus has remained on water, and I expect that in your guts, you must feel the issue of water as well. On September 21st, Commissioner Heil amended the oil and gas ordinance being considered to include a request that companies account for the amount and source of water to be used in operations. Commissioner Holden Rhodes has proposed that monitoring water for pollution from oil and gas operations should be included in the ordinance. Several geologists have pointed out that the heavily faulted Albuquerque Basin is geologically different from the San Juan Basin, and because of that faulting, horizontal drilling beneath the Albuquerque Basin aquifer has a high potential to contaminate the aquifer. The county has contracted with New Mexico Tech for an oil and gas resource assessment of Sandoval County in relationship of potential resources to groundwater. The results of this study are due out in May and June of 2018. Among other things, this study will focus on modern drilling techniques and their effects on oil and gas production and on aquifers in the Sandoval County setting. You cannot, in good conscience, proceed with an oil and gas ordinance until the results of the New Mexico Tech study have been reported and evaluated, and you must postpone a vote on an oil and gas ordinance until you fully consider what the effects of drilling in the faulted Albuquerque Basin will have on our water supply. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freeman. Up next is Governor Herrera.
Honorable Commissioners, I am Governor Eugene S. Herrera from Pueblo de Cochiti. I've been a lifelong resident of Sandoval County. I graduated from Bernalillo High School in 1973. The majority of the people here in Sandoval County are very poor, and it seems like this fracking episode is taking advantage of the poorer people in the Four Corners area and then also here in our Sandoval County. Excuse me. The majority of the poor people are very, very poor, but very, very rich in culture, history, and traditions. We are a very old people who have lived and flourished in this sensitive and fragile area. We live at the foot of the largest volcanic caldera here in the Northern Hemisphere. Our Mother Earth and Father Sun have provided us with all the resources needed to survive in this area. Pueblo de Cochiti has some of the best tasting drinking water in the nation, winning numerous awards. We respectfully ask you to amend and delay the ordinance till data from the New Mexico Tech survey has come in and for tribal consultation to be reviewed. It would be irresponsible not to review the data from New Mexico Tech, which could be catastrophic if not. So I ask for you, as you are our commissioners of this county, to vote with your heart, your consciousness, and your mind so that our people here can flourish. So if you will vote with your heart and your mind, keep in mind that you will have to answer to our children, our grandchildren, and our children yet to come. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, sir.
All right, thank you, Governor. Randy Erickson.
Chairman Chapman, Commissioners, my name is Randy Erickson. I live in Placitas. You've heard me up here before. I'm opposed to the current ordinance. But I'm here tonight to publicly make you aware that this commission has violated the New Mexico Open Meetings Act at least 3 times with regard to the proposed oil and gas ordinance under consideration for approval this evening. All of this is in the public record, so there's no disputing these facts. Violation number 1. The proposed oil and gas ordinance has been modified in several places since your December 21st meeting. At that meeting, changes were proposed by Commissioner Heil, were approved, as was the motion to publish and post. The document that was posted and all subsequent versions, including the document you have in your packet tonight, contains not only the approved Heil changes, but other changes that were not discussed nor voted on. I have documented 3 of these changes that are indeed material and substantive. I'll give you one example. In section 5.6, the noise control plan, the original planning and zoning document that was sent to you for approval has decibel levels listed at 55 and 70. The current document that you have in front of you today has decibel levels of 60 and 80. Somebody made those changes. That change was never discussed nor voted on at a county commission meeting. Violation number 2. The second attempt to post a legal notice in the Albuquerque Journal contains an error, as did the first legal notice. The posting in the Journal on October 22nd instructs concerned citizens to send their written comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is an error. Mary Feldblum checked with Makita Hill in the P&Z department, and he confirmed that comments should not be sent to the P&Z. Mary then confirmed with Sidney Hill that comments should be sent to him. I have this email stream here documenting this. This second Journal posting was clearly in error. Violation number 3. At the October 19th County Commission meeting, Chairman Chapman limited public comments to 1 minute during this meeting when it was expected that there would be a motion to approve the oil and gas ordinance. Sandoval County Resolution 1-12-17.8, the Open Meetings Act Rules of Procedure, states in section 2.f.1b2, unless additional time is granted by the chair, comments must be limited to 3 minutes. It says nothing about a lower time. Citizens, all of these are substantive and material violations of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. Citizens of this county expect that the rules and procedures of the Open Meetings Act be properly followed. The fact that they have not been adhered to raises even more serious questions surrounding the big push to pass this flawed proposed oil and gas ordinance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Erickson. Mary Feldblum.
This is the better mic, I think. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Mary Feldblum. I'm a resident of Corrales, a former academic, and I've been involved in policy issues in the state for 30 years. I served as a planning and zoning commissioner for 5 years in Corrales. I submitted written comments to Sidney Hill on behalf of the Oil and Gas Accountability Project. Those comments detail the many technical flaws and substantive weaknesses of the ordinance you are considering. But right now I'm speaking on my behalf, and there is this myth, I've heard this evening, many times, the oil and gas people saying, oh, you've worked on this for 2 years, you've studied it for 2 years. Well, 2 years ago, Sandridge was just being discussed. In fact, let me give you a timeline. And this is, I would like to submit for the record a timeline. March 28th, 2016, 1 year and almost 8 months ago, a commission work session was held. The conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission should develop an oil and gas ordinance relying on New Mexico tech expertise.
Late August and early September 2016, while working on a draft ordinance, P&Z staff held 2 public input meetings here, not in Peña Blanca, not with the tribes, not in Cuba. Both the public and the oil and gas industry at those meetings urged planning and zoning not to rush the process. November 2016, 3 new county commissioners were elected, taking office in 2017. February, this is this year, February to May of 2017, 4 new planning and zoning commissioners were appointed. In June 19th of 2017, the first public presentation of the staff draft. It's the first time the public had a chance to comment on something specific. But that changed. July 15th, 2017, all of a sudden the staff recommended keep the ordinance as is and have staff develop details which are known as SOPs. August 22nd, 2017, the Planning and Zoning Commissioner Stoddard ordinance that is for consideration today was officially presented for the first time. This is less than 3 months ago, and none of the Planning and Zoning Commissioners had seen it. September 12, 2017, 3 weeks after the Stoddard proposal was first presented, despite serious objections from the public and from 2 Planning and Zoning Commissioners, Planning and Zoning recommended that the ordinance be sent to the Commission for final approval. The chair, who has since resigned, raised issues that he urged the County Commission to address. He praised the citizens' ordinance, which was presented that evening. There was no time to review it since P&Z was under the gun, primarily due to your pressure, Mr. Chair, to send the Stoddard ordinance on to the County Commission. Thus, the ordinance you have before you did not take 2 years to prepare. From August 22nd, when the proposal was first taken seriously by P&Z.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, you're cutting into your...
To September 21st, that's from August 22nd to September 21st, when the motion passed to publish and post amounts to 30 days. The majority of the Planning and Zoning Commissioners were newly appointed. They were not very knowledgeable about oil and gas drilling. For the County Commission to consider such a hastily drafted ordinance clearly written by the industry, an ordinance that excludes public input and simply provides an application checklist to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Director, an ordinance that does not adequately address the very legitimate concerns of the public to ensure our safety, health, environment, that never provided our neighboring tribes with the opportunity for input, an ordinance that could have a serious impact on our county budget and the taxpayer. Commissioners, this is not a great example of democracy at work. Please do not pass this ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Feldman.
This is for the clerk.
Phoebe Sweeney?
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Phoebe Sweeney, and I'd like to thank first our Pueblo governors and leaders for coming tonight to show that our Pueblo communities need a voice on this issue. And I would also like to thank you for allowing me to share my comments tonight. I have a unique perspective and experience regarding this particular subject. As a Pueblo woman, entrepreneur, business owner, but also having an environmental engineering degree with a master's in engineering management from Dartmouth College. But most of all, I'm blessed with the traditional Pueblo education and our core values, principles, and way of life. Some of those core values and principles are the same across various religions, communities, cultures, and societies. Those are: 1, to be respectful. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. 2, take care of our children, our families. 3, take care of the things that allow us to live, such as water, land, air. And I refer to these basic core values because there are many things I've seen and heard during this process that these basic principles have been violated, especially when it comes to our native pueblos and tribes here in Sandoval County. Our Pueblo people and native peoples have been here on Sandoval County lands for thousands of years, and we plan to be here for generations to come. Therefore, you as the county can assist us in stewarding the land, water, air, and cultural and natural resources for the short time frame, very short time frame, you're here to make decisions about Sandoval County. It's very short. As you stated in the beginning, Chairman, to conduct our discussions respectfully. A respectful relationship and discussion is to genuinely sit down and discuss the concerns, priorities, and issues. Then to come to a consensus on what is appropriate and the right strategy or way to move forward. You may think that's impossible, but our Pueblo communities have used this type of decision-making process since time immemorial. That shows that this process works. I would like to urge the county to follow through on respectful and meaningful tribal consultation and integration of that input prior to making decisions that implement the current proposed ordinance. As a mother, I would like to share one more statement from my daughter, who's sitting back there. Help the water protectors. Help our brothers and sisters and the animals. Water is life. Protect clean water. I am 7 years old. I am Santo Domingo. I am San Felipe. I am Cochiti Pueblo. I love everyone. Neishatse, Shami. Do your best. Neishatse, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lima. Catherine Brooke.
Chairman, I'd like to yield my
My name is Tim Herrera. I am half Cochiti Pueblo. I am a mestizo. I'm half, but first of all, water is life. Every one of you there is drinking water there. It's our most precious resource that should come before anything else, rather than doing an irresponsible act of passing this ordinance and allowing drilling to go on here in Sandoval County. And speaking as a native also, I see the improper consultation with our native people, our indigenous people, because we have lived here for thousands of years. Our blood ties, our religion, our culture, everything is tied to this land. This is our home, and all of everything that we do, all of our traditions, our culture is to protect this land, and it is in regards to the children, those next generations that are going to have to come. Because those of you that are going to make these decisions now, these are going to affect them. They're going to affect us immediately, but you need to think about them in the long run. What are you going to tell your children? What are you going to tell your grandchildren? When they can't drink the water, when some of our farmers out here can't grow crops over here because they might be polluted by some of the chemicals and these other the bad effects of the drilling or any of this oil exploration. Think about the wildlife, think about everything else, because I'm from Cochiti Pueblo, and this is going to affect everybody down the Rio Grande Valley. This comes into Albuquerque, and everybody downstream. Like I said before, water is life. It's our most precious resource in this earth. Why does it we spend time, our scientists look for life on other planets, and yet we still cannot respect and have not understood completely what goes on this planet here? I am in opposition of this ordinance because I do not live in Sandoval County at the time, but I would like to at some time be able to come home to my own place and for it to be in a pristine condition, where our water is still clean, our lands, we don't have to worry about earthquakes because, this is the Rio Grande River. This river flows on a fault line. Any jeopardizing of that, we're risking our future for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next is Robert Cariz.
Governor.
My name is Robert Cariz. Thank you for the time. I just demonstrated just the real essence of who I am. I serve as a governor for Santo Domingo. And I said a prayer for you. And I said a prayer for everybody, as I do every morning. Because in the position I'm in, I take hold, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're purple. We have that responsibility. I talked to a young attorney back there. I asked him where he was from. He's from up north. I asked him about Raton, and I'm not sure if he knows. We have young kids that went to New Mexico Tech. Great. Now we need to have them do the study. You've already paid for it. Let's do that. We have to base this on honest, open, respectful communication. When I hear that one says that there is consultation with 6 tribal, I'm absent. I'm absent on that one because I have not had consultation. In July, we sent a letter back to the county when we finally heard something was happening. There was no response. Up until today, we've done some research. We've done that. Now it is up to you to listen to those research. 210,000 gallons just spilled in North Dakota. Up north, just recently. The federal government is not taking responsibility of the water spill that affects all the way down from San Juan County. When I go to Shiprock, the people, they grow their vegetables. I go out to get my chicos. Entonces, hablo español también. Nosotros estamos una gente unidad. Hay 2 personas allí. En este no hay blanco. Nosotros estamos mestizo, de color. That's what I'm seeing is when people of color stand up for rights, justice, respect, what happens? We're given 1 minute, we're given 3 minutes. When we've been here a long time. 1537, Spaniards came. Then we lived under Mexican rule. We lived under Mexican, then now we lived under the U.S. under constitutional rights. We don't have to go all the way through there. This morning I saw President Trump when I was watching the news. I'm an early bird. He's speaking, first time back in Washington. He's sitting there reaching out for what? I know I have time. He's reaching out for water. He's reaching out for water. Can you drink oil from your little containers there? I don't think so. So in that prayer, I hope that you have your open minds, open hearts, and take a deep look at it. And think about this term, Santa Fe different, because they are not from this area. I know we're talking about Rio Rancho. How many of you actually grew up and lived here? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rebecca.
With respect to my brothers and sisters, I'm happy to come here and express my points. Thank you. My name's Rebecca Ortega. I'm a native woman from the Tewa tribe. I don't know if you're aware where the Tewa tribe is located. Do you? You don't? Okay. Well, you know, there's a whole lot of us native people here. We're here because our ancestors have been here for thousands of years. You know what was so disturbing to me earlier? When that man, that person right there, when he said that this ordinance has nothing to do with the tribes. He says, this does not apply to the tribes. I don't get that. It is highly disrespectful and highly foolish and highly irresponsible to make a statement like that that says this does not apply to the tribes. That is just horrendous. To educate you a little bit, do you know what it means to be living on the reservation? To be living in the village? We live in a village. We talk our language because we live together. We talk our language. We help each other. We take care of each other. We have our songs, our dances, our tradition, our culture. And guess what? When we're having our dances, we're praying for everybody. We're asking for blessings, not just for us, but for all of you, and for the whole world, and for the oceans, and for the fish, and all the animals and everybody. And to somebody to say, this does not apply to the tribes, and then here you all sit thinking, oh, you know what? We're going to frack. We're going to go with the oil and gas industry. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commissioners. Are you also commissioners? You 5 that are commissioners? I guess if you frack, if you have the oil and gas industry, they have you in their back pocket, guess what? You're going to knock out generations of people. You're going to knock out all the Native American tribes that are living here. And that will be on your heads. That will be on your conscience. So are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to knock out all the tribes because of power and greed? And for somebody to say this does not apply to the tribes, that is just total foolishness. And also one more question. It's not just about the tribes. It's about every single human being that lives here. Because who doesn't drink water? Who can live without clean water and clean air and clean land? There's a lot on your plates that you need to think about. And like somebody said, use your heart, use your conscience. And not only that, when all this is said and done and everything is contaminated, where are all you going to be? Where are you guys going to be? Are you going to move out of state? Or maybe out of the country? What's going to happen? So you really need to think about the decisions that you're making for the rest of us. Like somebody said, you were elected into this position to take care of the people, to protect the people, to help them to prosper. This is not protecting. This is not prospering. This is taking away water and life.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Winchester.
Who says that? Yeah, yes.
Ms. Ortega, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jim Winchester. I'm the Executive Director of the Independent Petroleum Association of New Mexico, and IPANM is the voice of some 300 independent oil and gas producers who do live, work, and play right here in New Mexico. As an organization, I just want to pass along that we take no position on the proposed ordinance, since our members strongly but respectfully believe that there are sufficient existing regulations in New Mexico in our industry that adequately protect fresh water, human health, and the environment. Now, the proposed ordinance without the amendments that are being discussed is a much improved version from prior versions of this ordinance that have been discussed over the past couple months. But even as it exists, if you were to poll a lot of our members, they would say that this ordinance, just mere fact that there is an ordinance, is not business friendly. Even worse, the amendments that you may consider tonight, despite the best of intentions, will have the unintended consequences of making it more difficult and costly for our small operators to continue business. So please remember that new wells that are drilled here in Sandoval County and across the state do contribute to the tax base, and they help in all walks of life in New Mexico. Thank you for the commission. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Winchester. Up next is
Governor from Zia Pueblo.
he left.
Is he still here?
He left. Bill Gasper. Okay, we finally made it to the back page.
Oh, you missed something.
Oh, back page, he's talking about that.
I'm not done. Everett Chavez.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Honorable Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I actually came to you all as a representative of the Coalition of 6 Middle Rio Grande Basin Pueblos, which is charged in protecting all of our groundwater and surface water resources. Two major points. You received a letter that requests you to table this decision so that you don't preempt a study that's underway that dollars have been spent as constituents of this county. I think that's ill-advised to make a decision prior to the presentation of that report. The other matter that is important to us is that we are engaged meaningfully in consultations so that we can become a part of that decision that is sound and protective of our people and our resources. I'm really proud to see our young people, as also Ms. Suina Phoebe, the level of expertise that we do have in our communities that completely disagree with some of the hired guns that represent special interests. They will always present a different picture. Another part of my work history has worked as an engineer cleaning up some of the messes that state and federal trust agencies to be those stewards to protect our water sources as well as other resources aren't quite where it should be. As Native people, we've always relied on the surface water of the Rio Grande River. Right now, we cannot purposefully ingest those waters when we do our ceremonies because upstream of us are contamination practices. The organics, the fecal coliforms that are present in the surface water doesn't speak very well to New Mexico Environment Department or even the federal laboratories that are also charged to protect the resources that they impact. Currently, if you look at the EPA regulations with the new leadership, they're quickly doing away with those environmental protection regulations that puts all of us at risk. And particularly, I want to say that Native people are probably the most prone to these kinds of adverse impacts because you know what? We still ingest the foods, we still use the soils for many purposes, we use the water resources, the animals we still consume. So any actions that are taken isn't fully being mindful because some of you get to go to grocery stores to buy all your foods. Some of us are farmers and continue to rely on the soils that if they were contaminated, there goes our culture and our life because they're intimately connected to our culture. So I urge you to, again, not to beat a dead horse, but you were asked to use your hearts in the decision making, let that be the driving force. And let's not let short-term benefits of dollars drive a decision that could cause irreparable harm. I've had to do a major bunch of cleanup for the 19 Pueblos when I was the executive director for the Pueblo Office of Environmental Protection. So we have an obligation as a grandfather. I owe my grandchildren the inheritance of the resources that I was able to be gifted with. If we adversely impact it, there goes a whole bunch of young people that aren't going to receive, and the ones that were mentioned that have yet to be born irreversibly being impacted and loss of that inheritance that they deserve. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chavez. Christopher Muldrow.
How you doing? Is there anybody in this room that hasn't signed up to speak that wants to speak? If you are, could you please stand up? All right, I'm gonna put my pad back here. Hopefully they'll let you get on the list. There are several people downstairs too that are signing lists that want to speak, and I hope that we're gonna be able to let these people speak.
It's your turn to speak now, sir.
Yeah, I'm using my time to say that there's people that want to speak. But let me get into it. I didn't come here to speak on this issue tonight, but I'm here. But 2 Koch brother initiatives in such a short span, Right to Work, everybody knows Right to Work is a Koch brother initiative. It was up at the state, and the state already shut it down. And Koch Industries is also involved in drilling oil. What was it? One of the largest civil fines ever for an environmental law contamination. What are we doing here? The thing is, we're talking about jobs. I'm a student from the UNM School of Law. We have an environmental law department. I don't see any of those people here. I'm a Lobo. Lobos aren't scared. We're not scared of nothing. So I don't know the 24 Lobos that disappeared, but I'm not one of them. So the thing that I'm seeing is that the people in suits that are saying, oh, these jobs are great, they're not going to be the people out there doing them jobs. They're not. Yeah, they're high-paying jobs, but why are they high-paying jobs? Yeah, it's a high school, people that don't have high school diplomas, people that don't have bachelor's degrees, that we're going to send out to work in these oil fields. And we're going to pay them great. Yes, we are. Because why? It's an inherently dangerous activity. So when you die out there, you don't have to show negligence. We'll go ahead and pay for your death. That's how it works. So that's why they're paying so much. But the thing is, the people in suits aren't going to be out there doing it. It's the low-income people. It's the people that are not here in suits today. And they're telling you they don't want the jobs. There's a lot of things. You know, I heard that prostitution is legal in Las Vegas. Do we want to do that too? That'll bring in some money to the economy. No, we don't want it. We don't want those jobs neither. So the thing is, come on, let's get it together. They don't want the jobs, and hopefully, I'm gonna put my legal pad over here, and hopefully the people that are in the room that want to speak will be allowed to speak, and hopefully if the people who are still downstairs, stay down there, and hopefully when there's some more room, they'll let y'all come up here and speak. If not, I think you've already seen a lot of people said they're gonna be coming with the violations and the complaints, and this is gonna lead in a lot of civil litigation. We don't want the jobs. They don't want the jobs. And the oil spill I was talking about was Keystone Pipeline. So let's really think about what we're doing here. And I hope you guys really think about it. And oh yeah, I'm starting a Facebook page. It's gonna be commissioners who support fracking. And I'm asked everybody, when you see it in the next week, join it. Because whoever votes on this, we're gonna remember it.
Right.
And we're coming out to the polls.
Let's keep it civil, please. We're getting pretty close to the end of the list here. Kat, big enough. And I apologize if I didn't get it right.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, and mostly I want to thank the Pueblo Nations here because I will always be a respectful guest of your current and ancestral lands. So thank you. My name is Kat Bigwane, and I'm a representative from United Global Natives and a longtime archaeological site steward of the Four Corners area. I work in ancestral knowledge and skills preservation while creating sustainable tech for the future. Having spent last fall and winter providing humanitarian services for indigenous communities affected by the Dakota Access Pipeline, I know well the effects of large oil and the limited voice given to at-risk indigenous communities. We see that money concerns often justify the abuse of marginalized populations. I know from my preservation work traveling across the globe with indigenous Hadzabe of Tanzania and Mongolian herders and hunters that what we discuss here today has global implications and consequences. Senators and representatives, your job is bigger than just this ordinance. What you represent is something that is on a far greater scale. It's necessary to speak about the big picture. The Four Corners area of the U.S. has the greatest impact on climate from land disturbances than any other area in the U.S. We are responsible for greater protection of land, water, air, and the future generations than we are considering. We are alive because our ancestors considered us. We have to do the same. From research and contacts in international oil, I know what a slave this country has become to the Middle East in import and export of oil. It is cheap, dirty, creates economic slavery, even internally acquired produces future economic collapse, and it is a dying energy source, not a sustainable infrastructure, yet the damage is irreversible. We need to stand alongside other cities that have committed to move away from this. You have an opportunity and responsibility to fight for our land and humanity's survival. If you paid attention to our global climate concerns, this should speak to you. You must do the right thing, not from an economic or political stance, but as a human that looks in the eyes of their children and has hope for a future beyond theirs. This is critical. We all know how circular policy, law, and protocol are, but they have no universal weight. It is time for change. We must wake up. You have the incredible opportunity to make a difference in New Mexico and the globe. In our current environment, no fracking is reasonable. We must have an aggressive agenda to change our energy acquisition model. It is unacceptable for us to tolerate any continued environmental and cultural devastation. Our species won't survive this. So please consider all of this and the people here, because their voices are much older and represent so much more than just what we're considering now and finances.
All right, thank you. Dustin Garcia.
There's 6 additional speakers. You can pass that down. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Garcia is not here. Beaker North Cloud.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to take this time to thank our tribal leadership for being here tonight. Ekanompa, Nitra. And what I would like to say is, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. All that glitters is not gold. You know, how much is enough money? What can you take with you when you leave this earth? We need to think about our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. As a mother, as a grandmother, that is what my concern is for. What are we leaving? What is our legacy going to be? Not just me, not just the tribal people. For you sitting up there, what is your legacy going to be? And the jobs that are going to be brought to Sandoval County are social work jobs, behavioral health professions, to aid the people who are going to be victims of the prostitution, the man camps. You know, is that what you're looking forward to? That's part and parcel of what fracking and the oil and gas industry is. And it just hurts me to talk about this. Because we are responsible for the future of our children. What are we going to do about it? We're here speaking on behalf of them. What are you guys going to do about it? Seriously. And please don't forget my name. It's Beaver North Cloud, and I hope to run for Sandoval County Commissioner one day.
Thank you, Ms. Cloud. Representative Derek Lenty.
Don't forget North Cloud. North Cloud.
The Honopo and Ka away and K away and Tabo away and Taniti the Tabo away, Concilio away and Ka away and K away and here Mam Kima Kirimba. Good evening, my governors, my lieutenant governors, my councilmen, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Derek Lenty. I am the state representative for New Mexico House District 65. And before I begin, let me offer a happy belated Veterans Day to the 2 veterans on the commission. Thank you for your service. And for all of those that are in the room today, thank you all for your service as well. But as I get into my discussion, I want to make sure that as a reference point, everyone understands where House District 65 is in this state. House District 65 includes a majority of Sandoval County. It includes the town of Bernalillo. It includes 7 pueblos: Sandia Pueblo, Santa Ana Pueblo, San Felipe Pueblo, Santo Domingo Pueblo, Cochiri Pueblo, Zia Pueblo, and Jemez Pueblo. It also includes 3 chapters of the Navajo Nation, which include Torreon, Counselors, and Ojo Encino. Some small communities like San Luis, San Isidro, and also the town of Cochiri Lake. So as I sit before you this evening, I sit here as a servant of my people, carrying with me their wishes and their messages on this proposed ordinance. And to be frank with all of you, congratulations for just about upsetting every single group in Sandoval County. You've essentially offended every single oldest inhabited community in Sandoval County with your proposal. And had you had proper consultation, as has been discussed throughout the evening, you would not have a packed room in this very meeting room, nor would you have several hundred people downstairs in the lobby still waiting to talk to all of you. So on behalf of the town of Bernalillo, and speaking on behalf of Mayor Jack Torres, who sends his regards, he is quite concerned, as well as his town council and many of the residents of the town of Bernalillo. The folks that are outside of my district, those that include the village of Algodones, Peña Blanca, the All Pueblo Governors Council, who on behalf of the 7 pueblos that reside in Sandoval County, also drafted and passed today a resolution demanding tribal consultation with Sandoval County Commission regarding proposed oil and gas ordinance, to which I would hope that Commissioner Eichwald, you would be able to read into the minutes when the time is appropriate. Furthermore, you heard from Mr. Everett Chavez on behalf of the Six Pueblo Water Coalition and their concern on behalf of agriculture throughout the state. And for our neighbors in the town of Cochiti Lake, Corrales, Placitas, Rio Rancho, I also hear your voices, and I hold you in my thoughts, and I carry your messages. The list goes on and on and on, but history states that our resiliency in Sandoval County as people and as communities is much more than one decision or much more than what some oil and gas company can provide in monetary benefits temporarily. Basically, what I'm asking for now is the need for more stringent environmental protections that has been voiced by the people that I represent. It was brought up tonight that Cochiti Dam lies in the face of potential disaster if fracking occurs and frack quakes take place. What's going to happen to those towns and communities that go underwater? What's going to happen to the water that New Mexico is required to deliver to Texas and New Mexico, to which at this last week's Water and Land Subcommittee meeting that I attended in Santa Fe, we're already in debt because we can't fully deliver our appropriate amounts. We need to be able to provide better information on the financial impacts and the fiscal impacts this proposed ordinance will provide. We need to provide better government-to-government consultation to tribes in Sandoval County, period. Because truly it does not make any sense to pass an ordinance to which you've already commissioned a study on. What's the rush? There is none. And as a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, my Lieutenant Governor, Lawrence Gutierrez, that sits in the audience behind me, asked me to relay the conversation between perhaps you and my governor, Mr. Malcolm Montoya, and my councilman, Mr. Paisano, that in fact they do not feel that this ordinance is appropriate, that they do not approve of it, that they do not support it. So to mischaracterize that conversation is a slap in the face of my people as well.
All right, thank you, Representative.
Lastly, as a state representative from Mexico House District 65, I urge you to all have the courage, listen to your people, remove yourselves from the pockets of oil companies. You don't have to have disrespected and made the leaders of my pueblo sit here to the late hours of the night just to give them lip service, to know that you already have your minds made up, because that's not right. And I would urge you, lastly, table the entire ordinance in any form until proper consultation is provided and your commission study by New Mexico Tech is performed. Thank you very much.
Chris Bowman. Chris Bowman. She left? Okay. Mark Freeland.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Mark Freeland. I'm an Executive Staff Assistant with the Office of the President and Vice President. I represent 31 of our Eastern chapters in Eastern Navajo Agency. We do have 54 chapters in New Mexico. I come to you before you tonight on the 1-year anniversary of me sleeping on the banks of the Cannonball River. And I say that because I was standing beside our Standing Rock brothers and sisters in opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline. We were camped next to the Pawnee and the Northern Cheyenne. So it's a great night to be Native. Thank you. I wanted to read a statement on behalf of the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation stands united with the All Pueblo Council of Governors against any fracking and horizontal drilling in Sandoval County. The Navajo Nation has concerns with potential fracking taking place near our chapters of Ojo Encino and Counselor, where imminent dangers associated with fracking would endanger the land and people in the area, such as the accident that occurred with the WPX well in Naizi chapter. That fire affected close to was close to proximity within 400 to 500 yards of Navajo families. Currently, increased service activities from drilling is interrupting the daily lives of the Navajo people who live in communities like Counselor, Naizi, Torion, and Ojo Encino. As Native people, we are connected to these lands spiritually. The voices of our ancestors live in these areas, and any disturbances to this area are culturally and morally insensitive. Many of our lands are rich with archaeological and natural resources and are at risk of negative impacts related to drilling and fracking. When fracking occurs and causes underground explosions, the impacts can be vast. Studies show that fracking is contaminating our water and to our people. Water is life. We cannot afford to contaminate these such water resources in the name of oil. As tribal leaders, we have the responsibility to protect our tribal resources and sacred sites, as well as the health and welfare of our people. The Navajo people carry the overwhelming burden of the uranium mining legacy, contaminated water resources. Former uranium miners and their families are dying from terminal illnesses, the lack of cleanup at more than 500 abandoned uranium mines, and the lack of inadequate compensation from the federal government and private mining industry. Our fear is that fracking will be another environmental issue that future generations of Navajos will have to clean up. We have to protect our land, water, and air quality. As many of our relatives are getting sick, we have to stand in protection of the four elements that provide for us and for all of our people. The Navajo Nation urges the Sandoval County Commission to not approve the voting for the November 2017 Oil and Gas Ordinance as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Division staff. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Russell Begay, President, Jonathan Nez, Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, appreciate it. Dr. Robin Falker?
Thank you, Commission members. It's a long night for everybody, and I appreciate your attention and an opportunity to talk to you about my observations over the past 9 years when I first learned about fracking and got the personal information from people that I interviewed. I'm a physician. I'm also, I produce my own radio shows and host them. And what I found initially, 9 years ago, this was an industry that began going through communities like carpetbaggers, the history of carpetbaggers, having meetings with the people and lying to the neighbors and telling them your other neighbors have signed up for fracking, and terrorizing people that would not commit, and they watched their infrastructure get destroyed, and areas that were never meant to have so much heavy traffic were just devastated. But who picked up the bill? It wasn't the corporations, it was picked up by the people and the taxes. And that's what seems to be the bottom line across the board. They go and leave the open pits. Now we're going to have it done here, I'm assuming, with the corporations doing it, so it's a whole different way instead of on people's property, but it still damages the infrastructure. It still leaks into the groundwater. There's contamination. You have the horrible smells, the noise, the vibration. It's a big nightmare for those communities. Just to find out as a physician if someone is exposed to the fracking fluids, you have to sign a waiver to get to see the material safety data sheet, and that waiver is a non-disclosure form that you will not reveal the over 500 components that make up this fluid. How can something like that be allowed to come to pass that we cannot have access to what we're going to be exposed to? I mean, these are horrific things, And it just doesn't make sense when we're supposed to take care of things. And with all the conversation tonight, I've been here in New Mexico, I'm from New York City, since 1999, and what has shocked me is what's going on with the Kirtland Air Force Base oil spill. And this has been an acknowledged problem with leakage for 50 years. The jet fuel, thank you. Yeah, the jet fuel, but it still is contamination. And then we have the mixed waste land pits. I'm tired, as everybody is, I know. And the mixed waste land pits, and I'm thinking when someone brought up hemp, it would be absolutely perfect for remediation in New Mexico. We have medical cannabis we could grow. It would be something that we could do to clean the area and make it healthy. There are cancer clusters throughout this whole state, and the idea of fracking and the dangers with pipelines breaking old areas. You look at the WIP site, which had that cave-in, and then you find out that there was fracking within 2 miles of this deep salt mine that never had a problem. I mean, it just, the stories and the realities just hit home. I have so many notes that I've made here. Many people aren't familiar with the idea of sacrifice zones, and what we have with all this contamination are areas that get so bad that you can clean them up. And then they say, well, we need the natural resources, and the people are moved away and they're sick, and there's no money. So it's across the board with all of this, and to not have the studies done ahead of time, that's the only protection. If there's any kind of fracking that happens, you've got to have the preliminary studies, you have to have studies afterwards, because if there are those problems, you have to be able to prove it and not just let people be moved away. Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you.
Although I generally support this ordinance, I do have some issues with it, and I would like to consider some amendments.
Can't hear you, sir.
Thank you. I said I would like to propose basically 2 amendments. In my experience, real property rights as they apply in more densely populated areas tend to be a delicate balance of rights, much more so than in sparsely populated areas. Persons with real property in more densely populated areas have a reasonable expectation of right to use and enjoy the property and the balancing of rights. They have a reasonable expectation of precedence over those who wish to use property in a way that they would not have expected. The county has already established precedents in establishing zone districts in more densely populated areas, which include community districts and overlay zones. The wording is right out of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. The intent of community districts and overlay zones is to preserve and protect communities in areas that have land use planning and regulations concerns arising out of their particular history, culture, development pressure, or physical or natural characteristics that may differ from those in the county at large. Some examples: in Algodones, a conditional use is required for retail commercial business.
And I would also like to bring into the record a letter that was given by the coalition of the 6 Middle Rio Grande Pueblo Basins from Chairman Stuart Paisan, also into the record.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Eichel. Commissioner Holm Rose or Commissioner Black, which one wants to go next? Commissioner Black, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to discuss Commissioner Heil's amendments real quick, specifically. Can you hear me now, Lou? Okay. Everyone else, can you hear me? Just make sure it's clear. I would like to discuss Commissioner Hiles' amendment 9.1 regarding the county attorney's office shall certify the approval of an application by the P&Z director is in compliance with the requirements of this ordinance. I would ask Commissioner Hile if it's possible, or even county attorney, for her to speak on this. Having this as an SOP instead of an amendment. Your thoughts on that, Commissioner Hile? And does this affect the ordinance? Or how does this affect if we have an SOP, Council? Thank you.
An SOP would just, it would be the standard operating procedures. There's nothing in the ordinance saying requiring that. I'm trying to.
So I guess what I'm asking then is, if this amendment was an SOP instead of an amendment, we would still have the process for the permit under the ordinance to go through the state OCD permitting process, correct?
Correct.
And then it would go to the Public Works Department and Fire Department, correct?
Correct.
Okay, from there it would go to the Planning and Zoning Department, correct?
Correct.
Once the staff at the Planning and Zoning Department, it's not just one person there blessing it, correct? It's several people on the P&Z staff. And Mr. Springfield, if you could just come up to the front, I got some questions for you.
Ultimately, it would be the director of planning and zoning.
I understand he's the authority, but it goes through the P&Z department as well, correct?
That would be an internal process.
Okay, so hold that thought for a minute. So once the P&Z director approved the permit, the SOP would kick in for you as a county attorney to go ahead and verify this amendment, correct?
Correct.
So there's really no change in having an SOP versus an amendment, correct? You're still gonna have to comply with an SOP as you would an amendment, correct?
Correct. The difference would be that an SOP is easier to change than an amendment in an ordinance.
Mr. Springfield, when you get the permit, I believe, once it comes down from OCD, Director Mora and Fire Chief Maxson will look at that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
They have 30 days to look at that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll defer my questions later during our discussion. I just want to make sure I understand. I want to set the stage here for myself to understand the process a little bit better. Commissioner Hile, I would go back to you, sir, and just, I'd like to know your thoughts on the SOP versus the amendment, sir. Thank you.
Having it in the ordinance, I think it's...
The New Mexico Tech report comes out, and we have a chance to study.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Holden Rhodes. I just want to make a couple of observations that I think need to be made. First, I'd like to start by addressing Representative Wente and telling him that, you know, we're trying to do our best in terms of our communications with the Pueblos. It's not a one-way street, though, and you know, being respectful, and we're trying to do that. But the reality is, the brunt of oil and gas operations in Sandoval County are not on county land at all. They're on Native American land. That's where they are. So, you know, our ordinance is to protect everybody in Sandoval County. If the Pueblos want to use it as a template for their own ordinance, they're welcome to it. But I think there's some misunderstanding and there's some confusion in the room. And let me just speak to that without any hooting and hollering in the background, if you don't mind, Tweety. But there seems to be this misunderstanding that what this board is trying to do is open the floodgates to the industry here, and nothing could be further from the truth. We're talking about holding the industry accountable. That's what we're talking about, Jerome. We're talking about having protections. Look, did I interrupt y'all when you spoke?
Yes.
I mean, you know, let's have a civil meeting, please. I mean, be respectful. You guys come up here and you talk night and day about respect and everything, then you don't give it. Please, just let me have the opportunity to say what I want to say.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Block. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have to take another break. So we're going to break for 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and is here. And that is, we've got some amendments that have been proposed by Commissioner Heil, and that's on the table. So this board has to develop a consensus as it involves amending the ordinance. That's procedure. And so what I want to do is I want to take them one at a time. And I'm going to rely on Commissioner Howe to share with you that language one more time for his first amendment to the, what's been called the Stoddard Ordinance. Take it away, Commissioner Howe.
Okay, so I'm going to take it, well, I'll start from the beginning of 3.1. So 3.1 says amending comprehensive zoning.
Cannot hear you.
Sorry. Amending, how's that?
Thanks, great. Thank you.
Amending comprehensive zoning ordinance. The Sandoval County Board of County Commissioners hereby amends ordinance number 10-11-18-7A, comprehensive zoning ordinance of Sandoval County to establish oil and gas exploration and production in structures and facilities associated with the use as a permissive use section with section 9(1) RRA Rural Residential Agricultural District, and this is what has been added. And conditional use in community districts, CDAL, that's Algodones, Rio Rancho Estates Unit 7, 8, 9, and 22. CDLC would be La Cueva, CDJV would be Hangers Valley, CDBT would be, trying to find it here. Well, CDWP is West Placitas, so that would be Oscor. CDLP would be West Placitas Community District. CDISF is Ideal Acres San Francisco Community District. And overlay zones, DOZLP, that's looks like the I-25, and then Diamond Tail, and West Placitas Design Overlay. And then and then what is currently in the draft is the words "and" to remove this use from section 10 SU Special Use District. And the sentence is then added: for conditional use permit to be issued, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall ensure that the criteria outlined in this ordinance is the criteria considered when certifying that the permit is being issued in conformance with the requirements of this ordinance. So it would require a review for those communities, those overlay districts and community districts would require a review by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So I want to give the commissioners an opportunity to ask questions or comments about the proposed amendment, and then we can vote on it. Anybody have any questions for Commissioner Heil in regards to his amendment, proposed amendment?
Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, it would require a second.
Yeah, we're going to get there. I just want to allow discussion. We haven't really had a chance to discuss it since you rolled it out.
Okay.
You have a question, Commissioner Eichwald?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. Seems like we're in this amendment, we're splitting the county into the southern and the northern part of the county. Is that correct, Commissioner Howe?
Well, not exactly. You're splitting it into what is defined as the community districts, which are already in the comprehensive zoning. So it isn't like a clean cutting the county in two. You're defining specific areas like Placitas like Ames Valley, etc.
And that would be a special use district?
Well, no, they are currently community districts and overlay zones, and you would be treating them as a conditional use when you went through the process, if there were a permit required for them or requested for them.
And the rest of the area would be a permissive use?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Blackwell. Commissioner Holden Rose, do you have any questions about the amendment? Commissioner Block, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, Vice Chair Heil, the issue I have with this is what we talked about earlier, is treating one part of the county different than another when it comes to our citizens. We don't do this for our people up in the north or the western part, but yet we're doing it down here for more populated areas, I guess. And that's just something I can't support. It's not equal. This is about equality in this county, and this amendment is it really treats the tribal nations differently. It treats Cuba differently. It treats quite frankly, the areas that it doesn't cover. The areas not covered by this are mainly inhabited by poor minority people. And to me, I read this as, well, if it's good enough for you, it's not good enough for me. This is a mistake to split the county. It complicates things with the industry, but it also, more than that, more important than the industry, it treats those people differently than the people down here in Rio Rancho, Corrales, Algodones, Pueblo, and I can't support that. Thank you.
Could I respond to that?
You may, Commissioner.
First of all, Corrales and Bernalillo and Rio Rancho are not covered by this ordinance.
Understand.
Okay. And secondly, we've already, through the comprehensive zoning ordinance, we've already defined these areas, and I will read the exact wording that may differ from those in the county at large. And there's specific requirements for each one of those community districts that defines, building standards and other standards that apply to those community districts already. That's one of the reasons why I selected them, because they were higher density of population and defined as different from the rest of the county.
Does that make sense? I want to vote on the amendment. I don't want to vote on the amended ordinance because we're going to have two.
You stack them,
okay? You want to do?
So you do the amendment. It either gets approved or doesn't get approved. If it gets approved, then it's attached to.
It's attached to the amended ordinance. I get it. That's what I was planning on doing. So let's have a vote, gentlemen. Unless there's more discussion. Yes?
Has there been a second?
We did a motion and a second at the beginning, but now we're talking about something different, so we are going to have a motion and a second. But so I will entertain a motion to consider this amendment to the Stoddard ordinance, okay? And then we'll move on to the second amendment and we'll deal with that before we put it all together.
Can I make the motion then?
I think you should.
Okay, but I'm not going to say that all over again. You already said it.
Yeah, we've already gone through the language. All you got to do is just roll it out, I think.
So I'm making a motion that we approve the amendment to Article 3.1.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second, Madam Clerk.
Vice Chair Heil?
Yes.
Commissioner Block?
No.
Commissioner Holden Rose?
Aye.
Commissioner Eichel?
Yes.
Chair Chapman?
Chair votes yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second amendment. Commissioner Heil.
The second amendment has to do with the attorney being the second set of eyes with regard to an application. So, in my mind, it dealt with the issue that you don't have a single person approving an application. And merely added the wording to after it says the Planning and Zoning Division Director designee shall review the permit application for completeness. The county attorney's office shall certify that the approval of an application by the Planning and Zoning Director is in compliance with the requirements of this ordinance. And then it adds in the county attorney, you know, in the correct places, as a, for instance, later on it says in the event the Planning and Zoning Division Director designee determines that the permit application is incomplete and the county attorney concurs, those words read.
Okay.
Just making sure.
Not a problem. So, I never saw anything wrong with a second set of eyes in my time.
I'm sorry?
I said I've never seen anything wrong with a second set of eyes in my mind. So I don't really see anything wrong with this amendment. So let's have a vote on it. Would you like to roll it out there, Commissioner Hyman?
I'd like to make a motion that we amend 9.1 and 9.2 to include the text regarding the county attorney certifying the approval of the application by the Planning and Zoning Director, and that it is in compliance with the requirement of the ordinance.
All right, you almost got it right. You said 9.1 and 9.2, you didn't say 9.3. I think you need to say 9.3. You're not amending 9.2.
Not amending, no.
You're adding this additional language in 9.3, which is basically that has been certified by the county attorney, right?
Correct.
You want to reword it, just so we make sure we get it right?
No, I think it's right. So is it agreed by the decision of the Planning and Zoning Division Director? Or
I'm not talking about the wording, I'm talking about your wording of your motion.
Oh, okay.
I want to make sure we get that right.
We are amending 9.1 and 9.3 to include the certification by the county attorney.
All right, thank you very much. I got a motion. Need a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to amend Article 9, Paragraph 9.1 and 9.3 of the current Stoddard ordinance. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Chair Pyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Black,
No.
Commissioner Holden Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Eichel,
Yes.
Vice Chair, and Chairman Chapman, sorry.
Chair votes yes. All right, now that we've got that done,
I would like to table the ordinance, hold it in abeyance until such time as we receive the New Mexico Tech report review and have time to study it.
could you put it in the form of a motion, please? Say, I would like to make the motion
I would like to make the motion.
to table the ordinance.
Let's try this again. It's
Yeah.
a new day here.
Well, we wanted to try and get it
I
right.
would like to make a motion to table the ordinance, to hold it in abeyance